All right. Well, welcome everyone back to another edition of bops webinars, specifically around the customer collaboration wave series. And I'm Usman Asan from the bops team, and that's Brennan Stufley. We'll do quick intros right in a second, but really excited about today's webinar. The topic is very prominent in today's retail CPG landscape, and it's how to accurately and more effectively measure on-shelf availability. Brennan, I know this is a um, very passionate topic of yours, and there's a lot of thoughts that you have. So really excited to dig in with you and kind of get things going. So, like I said, we'll quickly do introductions on who's here from the Bops team. So I'm Usman, and I lead the go-to-market function here at Bops. And Brennan, I don't know if you want to give a little bit of intro on yourself.
Yeah, sure. Brendan Stufley here, Director of Ops for CPFR. And in this capacity, I guess, is my other experiences are being from customer service coordinator to demand planning to leading supply chain teams, establishing relationships with top retailers over the
Mm,
last 15 years, and then now working with other clients and CPGs and retailers to help solve the same call it workflows, some process enhancements, but ultimately, how do we help the consumer purchase the product in the quantity they desire, in the channel they desire? So that's why we're here today to learn a little bit more. And I'll go ahead and say I may get maybe too in the weeds, sometimes too high level, but we'll hopefully at least have some questions and certainly always approachable. We either online or certainly in person here in Northwest Arkansas. So thanks for um, bringing me into the topic today, Usman.
Absolutely, Brennan. And that was a good point that you made towards the end. For all the folks who are joining, which I can tell, we actually have folks from multiple countries today, which, we love. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Like, you're not going to be interrupting us or anything like that. In fact, we love your questions because they spark more thoughts and more ideations as we're having the discussion. So please feel free to drop any questions that you may have, anything that you want to get clarification on, and we'd be happy to dive deep on. And then, as Brennan mentioned, he is locally located in Bentonville, Arkansas. So if you are calling in from Arkansas, which I can tell a few folks from here, we're always looking to meet folks from the supplier community in person. So please reach out and we'll definitely make that happen. That being said, Brennan, let's kick it off today. So one of the big kind of shifts that we're seeing from a lot of the customers that we work with in the supplier community is that they're questioning why is it that their organization is basically stopping at measuring on time in full or OTIF or fill rate. And it's been a consistent theme that we've come across, as you know, but I think it may be a relatively novice idea for a lot of the folks on the call today. So I'm curious, first of all, like before we even dive into the question that you're seeing on the screen, can you give a little bit of background to the folks on the call around kind of what on time in full OTIF is and how that might differentiate from OSA, and then maybe then connect that to the question that you're seeing on the screen, which is, are you measuring what truly matters for shelf performance?
Yeah, absolutely. And still today, I don't want to leave the impression that OTIF certainly is still very important and very central to having a strong operation and flowing product to the shelf of your retailers. In this, the on time in full is the OTINF. I think that the in full portion is when the retailer, the quantity that's ordered, and
Mm-hmm.
what quantity do they ultimately receive. Now, internally, as a supplier, you may uh, judge that as how much you shipped. But what happens is that maybe missed shipments or it may be received incorrectly at the retailer. And so typically the retailer is judging this by their receipts, and the supplier may be judging this by what they've fulfilled or put on the truck, i.e. shipped. So the in full is just, hey, I ordered 100. How much did I ship? If I shipped 100, I get 100%. If I only ship 90, it's a 90% on the in full portion. Now,
Mm-hmm.
that's one portion of it, and we'll come back to it. But then the OT, the on time, is I ordered a product on Wednesday. My expectation is to receive that product, the following Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Did I receive it on that 24-hour time band that I gave? Yes or no? And then so is usually the truckload. So all products on that specific late truck or delivery would be classified as a zero on time,
Mm-hmm.
even though you may have fulfilled all 100%. So this is measuring a few things to help both parties flow product when prepared. So each distribution center and then ultimately the store is prepared to receive the product because they need it by that particular day. So both important measures. What I
Mm-hmm.
would say is maybe it takes some combination of things to then get to how you allude to, maybe it tells the whole story, but certainly concludes to telling more of the story to the shelf. Did it ultimately get to the shelf, not just to the next depot or the next point in the supply chain, meaning from a retailer to the retailer? And
Mm-hmm.
then did the retailer get it to the shelf? And then how do we measure that? What are some inputs that we may want to consider? And I think this is where on shelf is saying, is the product available? One way is through data. So in the data that the retailer shares
Mm-hmm.
on that day, do they have a unit? That's one way to measure it. Like any inventory means you were in stock,
Mm-hmm.
right? Do you have one forecasted day of potential sales or forecasted demand? That
Mm-hmm.
could be um, a specific way and a better way on some products especially if it's a fast moving item where you're selling multiple a day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
Having just one unit isn't really on shelf availability other than for the first person that day.
Yep.
So you typically want to have at a minimum, I would say, what you intend to sell every day would be a more appropriate measure
Mm-hmm.
for that. And then, of course, there are nuances that we maybe will get into on is it really there or not? Meaning, it may say that you have 5 units, but if you haven't sold it in 10 days, even though you sell 4 or 5 a week, it's unlikely that inventory is being presented in the space that you expect, meaning it's not on the shelf where the shelf tag is. It might be in the building, it may not be in the building, but it may be placed somewhere else, meaning it's not available for sale where the consumer expects. So each of these different things have different tactics to approach, but it does get to more detail about is the product where the consumer is purchasing it. Um, I know that Lowe's and Home Depot and Sam's Club and Costco are all warehouses, but
Mm-hmm.
they're still the retail in game for their warehouse.
Yeah.
But a lot of the jokes take me back to my beverage days at Kraft many years ago, where my sales leader told me, "Hey, you can ship all the product you want, Brennan, but if the day I see people pushing shopping carts in a Walmart warehouse, I don't care if you got it to the warehouse. I care if it's on the shelf." So
Uh,
as
I,
much as we've tried to build warehouse retailers, and still the concept applies. You have to get it to the end consumer, not just on the middle point. And I think this measure, OTIF gets it to 1 point, and then OSA makes it more clear for where the consumer is.
I love that. And thank you for sharing that example because yes, I don't think we are anywhere close to having shopping carts in the back room or the warehouses. So we definitely need the products on the shelf to be to be available for the consumer. One question that came to my mind as you were talking is if I'm someone on the call today and my organization right now is measuring OTIF and we are very good at it. Like we have a very high OTIF, we work really hard to get there. What are what are some ways that I, as a team leader, or even someone on the team who is working closely with the team leader, can start driving the conversation to see, okay, like how can we go beyond what we're just good at right now and look beyond to the shelf and try to incorporate the actual shelf performance, i.e., OSA performance, into our workflows and our day-to-day operations.
Yeah, and this is a good spot too to talk about. I mean, what really matters, and I think that you can have a wonderful OTIF in many instances, but when you start trying to measure if you're having good sales performance,
Mm-hmm.
but you have not raised the forecast at that the retailers are ordering. So if you were, let's say you were selling 10 units a week, it's been pretty steady, but then
Mm-hmm.
you had some new innovation or the marketplace changed and maybe now you're selling 12 a week. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so you had a 20% lift on your business. Um, for 4 weeks or so, you probably are not going to see the computer, i.e., the replenishment system, automatically recognize that you're going to continue to sell 12 units every week because it doesn't have the information you have about how well an ad was or the new innovation that came. It really needs input from you to say, no, no, I'm going to sell 12 ongoing, and I may even get to 13 units a week.
Mm-hmm.
In order to account for that, it has to order more product. But if it
Yeah.
keeps ordering 10 and you keep shipping 10, and the inventory is going to go down a little bit less than what you would like. And so
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to actually be able to meet that 12 or 13 consistently because it's not ordering enough product. So you can keep having 100% fill rate and ultimately not meet your sales goal. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why you want to move into what matters is many things, but you certainly want to, OTIF doesn't tell you if it ordered enough,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It just tells you it ordered and you filled it and you
Mm-hmm.
delivered it on time.
Yep.
You need
Yep.
more to the story. Is your sales performance and inventory aligned with achieving shelf performance? And I think we may get to that topic later, but that's
Mm-hmm.
where I say what OSA helps entail is you can fill 100%, but if the
Mm-hmm.
forecast was wrong and the order was wrong, it's likely the ideal inventory that you want for your consumer will also not be um, correct, meaning you will have less than you want or more than you want.
Amazing. All right. All right. Well, let's keep us going because I think that was a perfect way to kick off the webinar. And let me know if you can see the screen change. Sorry about that.
Yep.
So, in terms of now taking it a step further, and if we're starting to lay the groundwork for what you just mentioned in the previous part, which is okay, like we've been measuring OTIF and we know it's really effective for one part of this supply chain, but now we want to take it a step further. What are some ways that teams can start laying the groundwork for more effective and accurate OSA measurement? And I think more specifically where the question kind of relates to, because I remember this was a point that you were really passionate about, was like, how does your inventory productivity, how does your inventory performance actually connect to sales performance? That's one aspect. And then the other aspect is taking it a step further of how does that lead to a better OSA measurement and kind of that starting of the process on that journey to start measuring OSA as well.
Yeah, so there's broad I love this topic so I can talk for an entire coffee on just a specific item at a group of stores.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I'd like to have the conversation here is I won't capture everything. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
going to capture a few things that to look at and think is for your item across let's say you're in the 2,000 stores at a particular retailer
Mm-hmm.
and your item is a good selling item. And so it's somewhat how you would say it's been on autopilot, meaning, hey, it's in stock, is above the 98% goal. Your OTIF is fine. Things seem to be doing well. Should you look at this? Should you
Mm-hmm.
just ignore it and go to the red on your scorecard? Well,
Mm-hmm.
what I'd say is that whenever you have an item that's doing well and it's core to your business, let's say it's a top 5 to top 10 item,
Mm-hmm.
this is where your analysis of understanding OSA and inventory, how you can add to your business performance or at least discover insights that may allow you and then maybe your sales partners, marketing partners to extract more value out of their partners at the retailer to have better programming. And I'm going to give you a few examples for
Please.
that item, and for all of you that are here, think about this when you go back. Do you know how frequently your item is purchased at every single store? So the frequency. So is it purchased once a week and you sell 1 unit a week? Is it purchased 5 times and you sell 6 units a week and only one person buys two at a time. Like, what is the frequency at which your item is purchased? You may come across that one of your best items because it's you've been working there for a year, 2 years, and it's everyone's taking it for granted, but it probably only sells in half the time it could sell, meaning
Mhm.
it's 7 days in a week, it only sells 4 days out of the week. In slow moving stores, it sells once a week.
Mhm.
So do an understanding of how many stores sell at the average or higher, for instance. Okay.
Mhm.
When
Mhm.
you're doing that, at the same time, what is the typical inventory at which it sells? So every single time your item sells, what is the on-hand balance? Is it 20? Is it 4? Is it 56?
Mhm.
Kind of where is the range that you see the 80% where you get the most sales? What's the typical range for that item? Is it between a healthy 8 to 15 is where 40% of your business is sold, right?
Mhm.
Or is it being sold because of the shelf capacity? Maybe your item can only fit 4 to 6 on a shelf or even less. Is it
Mhm.
selling down to 3 or 2 units?
Mhm.
And so you're seeing, hey, my sales rate does slow down when I have less than 4 units. Well, maybe as
Mhm.
you pull the inventory by data, by day, by store, you'll start to see that, oh, every time this store goes down below 4 units, it just doesn't sell at all. Well, maybe
Mhm.
the last few inventory items over time has been scanned incorrectly. It's been damaged and not accounted for correctly. So it's ghost inventory or phantom in this instance. You may only have maybe 20 stores that's occurring on that major item. But
Mhm.
for a good item, 20 stores that is selling 1 unit or zero, when it could be selling the 5 or 6 that's your average, adds up to quite a few
Yes.
dollars. That's 100 units a week, which is equal to 20 more stores selling. And for you to get 20 more stores in distribution would be a big win for your sales team, right? So think about how am I maximizing the current distribution I have by more thoroughly understanding my sales per unit of inventory. Because
Mhm.
undoubtedly, you're going to be asked by your retail partner, "Hey, I want to reduce inventory. Where should I reduce inventory?" But if
Mhm.
you're doing this on a daily basis or weekly basis of how much am I selling, how frequently am I selling it, and what's my most productive inventory levels, you can
Mhm.
tell them, hey, I've got too much in these 35 stores, but here's
Yep.
15 stores where I need about 50 to 60% of that inventory that you're asking me to reduce. I actually need it somewhere else. So I
Mhm.
can reduce inventory, but I can't reduce everything you're asking, but hey, I can give you 100 units, let's say, or whatever the dollar value is. But
Yep.
can I move some inventory around because you're analyzing your inventory? Not There was nothing red about this item in a major way, right? It was only 20 stores.
Mhm.
However, you're fixing multiple problems and you're able to speak more clearly when a difficult question comes your way. I think those are the two areas where I've added more value that are not specific to a supply chain role in
Mhm.
order to help me communicate better with the retailer on the replenishment side while also assisting my commercial partners.
I love that. And I think it did a great job, not only kind of providing a tangible example, but it also set us up really nicely for the next and last question, which, you know, okay, like we've kind of understood or at a high level gone through why is it important to not just stop at measuring OTIF, but going a step deeper towards OSA. Then we've gone into, all right, if we are going to do that, what are some steps that we can take and what's the thought process? What's the context leading up to kind of the steps that we're taking to starting to measure OSA. And I think for us, one of the biggest learnings has been that it's not necessarily a technology gap. What it is it starts and it ends with people and processes. The technology just enables both of them, but people and processes are at the core of how do you drive better OSA measurement and ultimately OSA performance. So, Brennan, if we continue pulling the thread that you were pulling on for question number two and kind of focus on that internal collaboration and external collaboration, how does that connect to this final question that we have for today, which is all right, who owns OSA measurement and performance in your particular organization, and how do they actually act on it? Like we know there's one thing to kind of know what's going on in the news. I know that's one of your favorite phrases, but then how are you actually acting on it?
Yeah, good. Great question. And I do like that you started where I like to start is this is definitely people oriented. And but it's the first question of who owns measurement and performance in your organization. I would say most people will give you the answer is hey, we all own this. We're in the business of selling products and we're trying to make whatever bring value in whatever category you're in to that consumer for that maybe that dining occasion or for that use case that your product meets that need. So
Mm-hmm.
everyone will say I do, we do. Now, where I'd say OSA, just like OTIF, I would say is that maybe there was a known that, hey, OTIF was supply chain at first.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had maybe large outages during the pandemic, and even coming out of that, more retailers were fining or uh, asking to be paid for poor performance through a fine or some kind of negative consequence of you not performing. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that then everyone became more aware because the fines would then come out of the trade promotion management budget, which then impacts our commercial team. So it was more thoroughly understood that kind of everybody plays a role in achieving OTIF.
Yep.
Maybe some roles have to participate more. I think OSA is similar in that we all do participate in the outcome. So everyone is correct whenever they ask that base question. But do we have the rigor for OSA to be able to know, is there a group that answers to it ultimately and
Mm-hmm.
specifically? And then is it visible for everyone? Meaning, does everyone even know the OSA for their brand or their category? Do they know
Yeah.
which items are the best? Do they know which items cause the problems? Because if you juxtapose that against OTIF, you usually are understanding that maybe a particular plant or a particular region causes
Mm-hmm.
you more heartache in OTIF than maybe some other business lines. Meaning you might be able to under forecast and still meet your OTIF because you as an organization, you hold more days of supply on that type of item. So
Mm-hmm.
there's some fluctuation in the volatility that you can absorb. Other items, it's super tight. So you got to be a little bit within 10% on your forecast in order to make sure you can achieve the same outcomes. On OSA, is that same rigor happening? Do you know which items are you measuring it to know that you're likely to have a problem as an organization? Because
Mm-hmm.
Walmart shelf, a Target shelf, a Kroger shelf, all of these retailers are carrying your item.
Yep.
Is it because of their operations or is it something specific to your item that's driving this, right? Meaning, how are you doing business leading to a poor performance at the shelf? Is it packaging related? Is it how you label the cases that's causing the labor, regardless of retailer, to struggle with where to put the product? These are all things that I'm getting into the detail of, but who owns it could be across not just your normal players of sales, supply chain. It could be you need to partner with packaging to improve the receipt because it's getting received incorrectly at the distribution center might be why it doesn't get to the shelf. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're not being I'd say following the box, the product from manufacturing all the way to the shelf, it doesn't matter if you measure OSA at the end, you also have to measure the processes in between. And you
Yep.
have plenty experts inside of all of our organizations across this whole value chain. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just the report that the sales team or the retail replenishment team prints out, and now they're the owner because they're standing at the printer with the results. They're the
Mm-hmm.
ones having to have the tough conversation, maybe with the retailer directly. But each person in the organization can help. And I'd say this is why I say it's not just in your organization. In most instances, you also partner with third parties to help you with this
Yep.
because you have the merchandise organization, for instance, could be your eyes and ears at each of these retailers to give you feedback on your promotions, on the special end cap, your new item launch. When you do a modular change, you're typically hiring out more resources to help you have eyes and ears. So how are you digesting that? Who's in charge of synthesizing the data? but how are you putting this back internal in your organization? And I think the direct cause, the root cause, this whole mentality of continuous improvement, we apply that and we learned and built a lot of good muscle and OTIF in our organizations.
Hmm.
How do we start to apply that rigor similarly across an OSA measurement that all of us also still own? That's what is intriguing to me as much.
I love that. I love that. And I don't think there's a better way to wrap up today's webinar than, this last point that you just made, that there's been a lot of effort, a lot of rigor, a lot of resources that have gone into improving OTIF. And I think that's been a worthwhile investment, obviously, but that's not the final destination. There's another kind of step in this process, and that involves bringing that same type of rigor, same type of investment, same type of resources towards investments in OSA. And I think the industry overall is finally kind of opening itself up to see that, you know what? Like OTIF is only getting me so far, and there's a whole leg that leads up into the shelf that, I haven't really addressed properly, and it's something that's super, super important, especially today. So I wanna I wanna hand it off to you, Brennan, and say like any final thoughts before we sign off for today, and then yeah, we'll let everyone on the call go back to their day to day and hopefully start some conversations within their organization about improving OSA performance and measurement.
Yeah, certainly. This is certainly meant to be super quick. Maybe get some thoughts for you out there and share back with us. But go out there and measure something. That would be my thing. Go measure something.
I
See what you
love it.
find.
I love it. Well, just some housekeeping rules. So we will share the recording after this, and our webinar recordings are free to watch on demand. Like we don't request anyone sign up to watch or anything like that because our intention is to kind of provide these resources for free, available all the time for the supplier community. So you will have the recording coming to you as well as the slides. And then if you have any questions for us, obviously shoot us an email, either me or Brennan. And lastly, Brennan will also be joining a panel at the Consumer Impact Summit in Bentonville in about 2 weeks, and we'll be sharing more information regarding that via email as well. So, if there's nothing else, Brennan, I think this has been super, super useful, and I think a great next step in our customer collaboration wave series. And we'll be back soon with another webinar later on this month.
Yep. Thanks, Usman.
All right, thank you, Brennan. Take care. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.